many, many years ago, 560 million years ago, to be exact, almost, we were a race of beings. We did not start on this planet.
The same God didn't make the white man that made us. The white man made just 6,000 years ago, and we was made unlimited. We don't know nothing about any birth record for us. You can't find no history that will give you the birth of the black man. He has always been.
We did not come from apes. We came from a level of higher evolution, and we had a genetic code that had 12 strands of DNA activated within it. That 12-strand pattern is called the silicate matrix, and the silicate matrix still remains as a dormant potential within the humans of today. That's what these classes are about. We have the abilities within us. If we can understand what the process of DNA evolution and how that applies to our consciousness, if we can understand this process, we can bring those potentials of 12 strands of DNA back into activation. Now, we have 2 identified strands, as far as our scientific community knows. And we attribute things, the genetic characteristics, eye color, hair color, disease sometimes, to genetic factors. There are levels of DNA structure that are even below that. There are base structures of DNA. And when we get into this, we're getting into something called chelantic morphogenetic science. It's the science of morphogenetic fields. Morphogenetic fields are the form-holding blueprints that create grids of electromagnetic energy upon which matter particles can compose themselves to form matter forms. So when we're dealing with our DNA, we are dealing with a level that's even below that is the morphogenetic field. In the course that we're going to do today, there was some very interesting new information given to me, and that's why I'm excited to present it to the people who've had the material from before, and I'm trying to figure out how to present it to the people who haven't, because it's the next level up. Very quickly speaking, in the silicate matrix, which we are trying to activate in our DNA through these classes, there are 12 strands of DNA. They are double heli. You have one magnetic heli and one electrical heli. So you have 12 of those. That's the basic structure. Most of them are dormant right now. Most of us on the planet right now have an accretion level, which is the DNA activation level, of between 3 and 3.5. Our scientists see 1 double helix. That is because there are particles that vibrate at a different angle of rotation and vibrate at a slower pulse than our particles in our perceptual field and the perceptual field of our instruments, and there are ones that vibrate higher. DNA is stacked in an overlay form, and you will only be able to perceive from any one system the portions of the particles that vibrate within that system. So right now, we don't have the instrumentation here. Well, actually we do. The physical body has the ability to see those multidimensional scales, but they're not able to see them with scientific instrumentation. But we are dealing with an overlay structure of 12 DNA strands, most of which are dormant. Okay? Some of this knowledge has been kept alive in our cultures since ancient times. It was protected in the ancient mystery schools. There were mystery schools in Egypt that protected a large portion of it. There were Hebrew mystery schools that protected a large portion of it. But nobody had the full picture of what was going on. Some of them understood the concept of triggering things in the DNA to make evolution accelerate, and also to be able to move your consciousness and your body out of this three-dimensional field. But it was a very hush-hush science, and everybody's trying to figure out exactly how it worked. They had the pieces, but nobody seemed to have the whole plan. We are very, very gifted in our time, because the beings of higher evolution, which do exist, who do know these things, they have kept this knowledge from us for a long time in order for us to evolve to a point where we were peaceful beings. And once we had the power that this knowledge would give us, we wouldn't go and destroy other systems. And that's why it has been kept from us. In the time period we're in, because some of the things that we're coming up on in the next 18 years, a decision was made in the councils of higher evolution that this information would be given because the continued quality of our survival would be dependent on whether or not we could learn certain things very quickly and create activations in our DNA. If we can activate certain portions of the dormant silicate matrix, we will be able to accommodate certain electromagnetic changes that are going to happen on the planet much better than if we did not do those activations.
Said, in the times before the 208,216 BC fall of Brennoe, when the angelic human races of Earth suffered the loss of D12 access, all life experience was a living prayer of joyful spiritual and material celebration. In those times, religion was not a control dogma used to rob personal power and dignity from people, In those times, people did not die. They consciously chose to ascend out of density via the universal Stargate system. Science and spirituality were fully understood as part of the same primal creation mechanics that allowed for the experience of manifest expression and simultaneous experience of at-one-ment with the true loving God source. Back then, we all knew ourselves, each other, the earth, and all things as blessed expressions of the one God, and we honored all things accordingly. In those ancient of days, the days of innocence, there were 12 angelic human tribes appointed as the co-guardians of Earth's planetary Templar complex. Each tribe was entrusted with one of the 12 Emerald Covenant cloistered oratora plates. Each cloistered oratora plate held 1/12 of the Founder's Emerald Covenant teachings on the nature and mechanics of reality, consciousness, and manifestation. From the 12 CDD plates, protected by the 12 angelic human tribes, arose the first earthly verbal and written translations of the Founder's sacred teachings. These text translations were the original holy books of the 12 genuine components of what is termed religion. The teachings of all genuine holy books complemented each other, honored the same eternal, loving, one God source that has infinite names.
The timeline for the activation of the 12-strand DNA in humanity is expected to occur rapidly in the very near future. This accelerated timeline represents an unprecedented leap in human evolution and consciousness. The Pleiadians have indicated that the activation will proceed in waves, with certain groups achieving activation earlier based on their spiritual awareness and openness to the process. Sensitives, intuitives, healers, and lightworkers are likely to be among the first groups to undergo spontaneous DNA upgrades. Children born within the next few years are also expected to display noticeable upgrades, as many will come into the world already coded for 12 strands. Their capabilities and talents will astound those around them. As more people achieve activation, they will trigger others around them to begin upgrading.
DNA is being changed. It's all part of this shifting into the new earth. Everybody's DNA is being changed. Now with this shifting, the older people are having the hardest time adapting. Of course, the young people are already there. Their DNA is already where it's supposed to be when they come in. They're so advanced. They're there already. That's the third wave. The gift of the world are these children. But the other ones, we have to catch up. But I said it has to be a gradual process, a gradual shifting. And many of these, especially the older people, they said if you can't handle it, you'll transition. Because now the energy is speeding up and they're moving much, much faster.
It said that when they tested the orangutan, they found out he only had 3 DNA series. When they tested the gorilla, they found out the gorilla has 4 DNA series. He's a little smarter than the orangutan. They tested the chimpanzee, which is an ape, and found that he had 5 DNA series. Then they went all into the different races of the world. They went into Europe and tested the DNA series of the English, the French, the German, the Spanish, the Russians, and found they had 6 DNA series. Then they put all of this, what they found from around the world, on a map. It's called the intelligence map of the world, because they tested 116 different human groups and found their DNA series numbers. All of them, all over the world, have 6. And they showed that the English have only 6, and it's all into Europe, only 6. Went over into Japan and China, and they only have 6. Over into America, with a predominantly European, and they only have 6. Then they came to Africa. But when they came to Africa, found out that the African people have 9 DNA series, from here just below the Shanghai Empire down to the foot of Africa. All those 10 nations, of which African Americans descended from one of them, we have 9 DNA series, the greatest possibility of genius in our group. Now it's answered this age-old question: how can a people survive being told they're nothing for 400 years, never allowed to learn that they came from beautiful cities, and told they came from a jungle. How could a people survive? How can a people become champions in everything they touch? Because they have 9 DNA series, while the rest of the world has only 6.
Look at that, 147 alien genes. Look at this. Humans contain alien genes not passed from our ancestors, researchers have discovered. Who is humans? Who is humans? Who is humans? Who is human? Now look at this. Look at this. Talking about the O negative blood type, huh? Which is an extraterrestrial blood type. Look at this, huh? Africans, huh? Unknown human DNA species. I put this out years ago. This shit just came out this year, February 14, 2020. Scientists firing ghost lineage of DNA in the African. See? Now let me explain something to you. Let me explain something to you. Okay, I'm not going to go into details on the article. Let me explain something to you. If they never found no anthropological bones, they never found no leftovers or no bodies, huh? Where did these motherfuckers go? If black women have an entire human species in their DNA that accounts for an entire civilization or race of people, and nobody never seen these motherfuckers, we must ask ourselves, did they even die? Where did they go? Is they under the water? Is they outer space? Where did they go? See, now you might say, Pharaoh, what is a metagene? See, now what you're looking at is the template for our amino acids. Now, amino acids are like Legos, and you can construct Legos differently to create different pieces. And so why is this important? We have 64 amino acids. You only got 20 to 22 active. And so when you watch the movie X-Men, you're an X-Man and you become a mutant. One of your genes mutate and activate and give you psychic abilities. The fucking CIA already admitted psychic abilities are real. So I don't think I need to argue that with y'all. Okay? They already admitted this shit is real. Now, why is this important? All of these other genes that you see on this chart are not even yet unlocked or available to you. So this is why black people are being organ harvested. This is why black people are having our placenta stole. This is why Planned Parenthood, which was set up by the Ku Klux Klan, yes it was, okay, is stealing our fetuses and using our tissues for their own scientific evil experimental endeavors. So the red box that you see is the only amount of your proteins in your DNA that you use in this lifetime. So you don't know what the fuck you capable of, black man and black woman, because you have not yet reached your full human potential. But how you gonna reach your full human potential eating this fucking processed food, living underneath this poisoned ass air? Why you think they poison the air, poison the water, poison your motherfucking mind? So that you do not unlock your metagenes. Go research metagenes. Metagenes, meta means beyond, okay? Excuse me, I spelled the damn word wrong. Let me fix it. Meta means beyond, okay? So a metagene is a gene beyond normal expression, okay? Black people have genes that take us beyond normal human level of existence, huh? So if you think these niggas that's running this basketball up a court, these niggas that's throwing this football up a field, if you think those is some genetically advanced niggas, them niggas ain't even tapped into one of these motherfucking amino acids, let alone all of them. Huh? They call it mythomolecules. See, your DNA actually is coiled up and it unravels via exposure to light. Huh? This is why they got a roof on every goddamn thing. Your house, your car, everything. It takes 8 minutes for you to get fresh sunlight. You're not even outside for 8. I already broke this down in the other video. I'm not going through this again. See? So you will not reach your full human potential living underneath a motherfucker that can't even live in the sun. Our DNA is unlocked by the sun. These people are killed by the sun. So how can they give you a blueprint for you to reach your full motherfucking potential and the thing that unlocks your greatness destroys them? Look at this. Look at this. Because they're going to say I'm captain. You see this? You see this? Why is this important? You think these people made up stories about motherfucking Transylvania and Dracula and them suffering from the sun on accident? No. This is these people's lives every day. They come outside and they burning.
The process of biological transmutation, which was our original imprint, we were not meant to die. If you understand how to activate DNA and you can fix the mess that's been done to our DNA, death was not originally part of the human condition. Transmutation was the way to get out of here. You didn't leave a body behind. You didn't have to. The bodies didn't get sick because you knew the mechanisms by which they stayed healthy. That's all been taken away from us because of the way our history unfolded. The Indigos are bringing back our heritage. They're bringing back the knowledge. And I know this, and I know it intimately because I'm one of them. I'm one of the Indigos. There's 3 types we'll talk about later. I'm type 1. And I'm not the only one. There's 350 like me right now, and there's like 2,500,000 of type 3. So there's a lot of indigos here already, okay? When I speak about indigos, I'm not speaking about somebody told me something about indigos and I'm passing on to you. I know what it's like to be raised in an indigo body here. I know what the indigo body means and what the gene code is doing. So I'm speaking from the heart as well as the mind when I talk about this stuff. We need to understand how our DNA functions. If we're going to understand how the DNA of the indigos differs from that of human, why they are considered, even though they birthed through human bodies, why, you know, through human parents, why they are considered literally a hybrid ET race. There is a distinct difference in their gene code, and I've done diagrams in these chart packs to show you that difference, because it becomes really apparent when you have the spatial relationships and the visual diagrams.
We have to understand the sun is the highest level of vibration. It emits the highest velocity of waves which interact with all humanoid or all non-humanoid life on the planet. So let's just say any and all living organisms on the planet. So that being said, the keys are within us. 24 out of 64 of our DNA of our DNA codes is all we have unlocked. But right now the other 40 is being unlocked by the specific frequency of light. Also, the 98% of our DNA that was considered junk DNA also falls in this category of what I'm talking about. And this 98% is also being unlocked. Period. So now, when you're dealing with, let's say, X-Men, because the Marvel Universe was just created off different attributes of the African. When you're dealing with X-Men, one of the first X-Men was Mystique. Mystique was an African woman, and if you look at Mystique, she has the ability to change into anybody on the planet Earth. This is symbolism in the X-Men. Why? Because it's symbolizing how the African woman carries and holds the genes, the genetic database and infrastructure of everybody on the planet Earth. And when you're dealing with X-Men, what is X-Men? Just like an ex-convict. I'm no longer a convict. X-Men, I'm no longer a man. I become a mutant. What happens in X-Men? The genes become awakened due to some sporadic event, and they don't know what's going on. And then they become what's called mutants, a.k.a. gods. So X-Men is just about the awakening of the genes. And when you look at the Sentinels in X-Men, they look like the Olmec heads. This is because all of that is nothing more than symbolic allegory to the story of African people and what's to come. And then Charles Xavier was supposed to be Martin Luther King, and Professor X, Charles Xavier was supposed to be Martin Luther King, and Magneto was supposed to be Malcolm X. Hence, you got the motherfuckers that want to merge with the government, Martin Luther King, and then you got the Brotherhood, which was Malcolm X, who was saying fuck the government for the way they treating us. That whole entire story is about African people and our DNA. Now, if you don't believe me, if you watch the latest X-Men movie that came out, Apocalypse was supposed to be symbolic to the Anunnaki. That's why when it first come on, he's in the pyramid in the King's Chamber, transferring his life force. So now why is this important? They got the unk on the goddamn man. They got the unk on him. So they showing you right in your motherfucking face. So you gotta understand, family, we are the gods and goddesses. And 100% of everything that you see on TV is about you one way or another. So you have to understand the science behind your greatness as an African person. Because if you don't, you're going to keep being manipulated and you'll never understand why we are being harvested by the European for his genetic survival and why we are being assassinated on a daily so that they can extract our organs and sell them on the black market. Because we hold the keys to the cosmos.
You must awaken now. You are the melanin carriers on this planet. You were the original 12-stranded people, and you were given that privilege through a whole lot of work and time. It was not something given to you by chance. Because you fell from grace and sought to make better than your creator, you suffered by that you created, and then also was brought to your planet, that you created in a higher form. In other words, once you think that you are a god, you must act god-like. Not sometimes, but all the time. Because once a god falls short, there are so many things that are not godlike, just waiting to lapdog you up and tear you apart, that you're open then.
There will usually be the beings that become involved that we refer to as the precursors. What this generally is are beings that are born on your planet, but have had experiences and encounters in such a way so that their genetic markers are slightly altered toward a little bit more expression of the idea of the hybrid beings that you understand to be the children that will ultimately live among you on Earth in the years to come. These beings, these precursors, will wander through your society, some of them understanding who they are, many of them not necessarily understanding who they are, what they are, but they will carry enough of the hybrid frequency so that if you should pass by them, or they by you, you will pick up on something that feels a little bit unusual, a little bit different. The idea is that they are, by walking among you, getting you used to the idea of the hybrid vibration, which is actually many times stronger than the frequency they are giving off, but you are getting a flavor, a taste, a hint of that frequency, not only to help you acclimate to that vibration, which ultimately will be living among all of you, but also to gauge your response, your reaction to that energy, to see how it is that you are capable or not of integrating that energy within yourself, and thus using that as a barometer to indicate when you might actually be ready for contact with beings that are a little closer to the idea of the true hybrid vibration.
We are non-ether beings, but we are extraterrestrial beings, and we do not come from the earth. We actually come from this cosmic realm. They done got new technology that done surfaced, that they done went deeper and deeper and deeper into DNA and genomes, and they found that Africans have a different DNA strand, y'all. About 50,000 years ago, ancient humans in what is known as West Africa apparently procreated with another group of ancient humans that scientists did not know exists. Hold on, let me say that again, boy. About 50,000 years ago, ancient humans in what is known as West Africa apparently procreated with another group of ancient humans that scientists didn't know existed. They aren't any bones or ancient DNA to prove it, but researchers says the evidence is in the genes of modern West Africans. It says they analyzed genetic material from hundreds of people from Nigeria and Sierra Leone and found signals of what they call ghost DNA from another ancestral line. And trying to research our blackness, they found out that it's a gene in us that they don't even know where it come from. And it traces back to the prokaryotic cell. And we're going to trace the prokaryotic cell back to different planetary systems in the galaxy. In the galaxy, family, not from Earth, showing you that we are the true extraterrestrial beings here on this planet. So if we can tap into our DNA, or what they call the junk DNA and all this other stuff, or the ghost DNA, notice they start changing the name of it because they don't know how to study it. If we can tap into that, and if we can localize into that and meditate on that and find a way to bring that to the surface collectively as a collective African consciousness, we can take back our freedom, y'all.
1,000 years ago, that's when they got seated here. Now, with each root race, there was a cloister race that came in with the purpose of two things. First, the cloister race would come in first and birth through the root race potential. The cloister race was a bigger flashline sequence DNA. It had more strands. And out of that, smaller versions would come to evolve the particular strands of the lower parts. So each root race had a cloister race affiliation. 75,000 years ago, the first race to come in physical were called the Urantrians. They had in their flashline sequence of birth strand 2, plus 7 through 12. Now notice all the cloister races, they have whatever the single strand is that their root race went with, but they also have strand 7 through 12. They held the potential of the 12-strand pattern, anchored it here into the race morph field, so it would be a potential for the races. Because if they just came in with one strand, they would have stayed one strand. You needed to have a race that would hold these higher potentials while the lower potentials were evolved and the strands were built up to meet them. The process and design of our evolution is literally passing through these thousands and thousands of years of root and cloister race cycles to progressively and very slowly rebuild the flashline sequences of our 12-strand DNA pattern. It didn't have to be that slow, but it was an agreement made by stellar races that would be stretched out over many thousands of years. Because the last time we were up there, this race, we got a little full of ourselves and created some real messes. So there are beings in the higher harmonics that don't want to hear anything about giving humans the key to the kingdom again. Not anytime soon. They want to make sure when we evolve down here, we get it this time, and we learn compassion. We learn how to use our power with wisdom, because we almost blew a planet up when our race was in the higher harmonics. That's how we got down here. Now, the Diamond Sun 12-strand DNA matrix. People who've been in the workshops before understand that I've talked about the original human imprint being a 12, not a 2-strand DNA pattern. This was the original design. There is an original design, which means somebody designed it. The DNA imprint for the human form. What we have right now are 3 active strands. That's all. We get 3-dimensional consciousness because we have 3 strands activated, which allows only 3 dimensions of frequency, scalar wave patterns, to translate through the hologram into manifestation. Originally, we were supposed to have 12 strands. Now, the strands don't look like this. This is a diagram that I use to show relationships of strands to each other, and to show you, there's other diagrams that in other courses on the DNA that I get more into, I show you what's contained, the basic codes contained in each strand. So this is a diagram. This is not how, if you look real close at it, your morph structure, it's going to look like that. There are geometrical relationships of these scalar wave grids that have very specific, what they call geomancies, or angles of interrelationship. This is not those. This is simply a way to show you strand content, strand amount, so you can compare what yours was supposed to be when you were originally designed as being a human consciousness, what it is now, what it needs to grow back into being, so you can reclaim your ascension codes, which are your appropriate fire letter sequences that correspond directly to the dimensional bands. This is what our evolution is about here, even without the indigos. This is what we have been trying to accomplish all along down here on planet Earth, was to try to rebuild our original imprint because it was shattered at one point. It's a morphogenetic field that had 12 primary fire letter sequences, flashing on and off sequences. Some of those frequencies were completely pulled out. The flashline sequences didn't exist anymore, which threw off the whole calibration of how consciousness related to itself. This is DNA mutation. Mutation of fire letters, distortion of fire letters, distortion of scalar wave patterns, translates into DNA mutation, translates into perceptual distortion. We have been living for 200,000 years under perceptual distortion caused by DNA mutation. We have been trying to re-evolve back into the 12-strand DNA pattern, which means each one of these strands, each line here represents a strand. That represents a flash line sequence, a fire letter sequence, that corresponds to one dimension, of your consciousness. 12 strands implied 12 dimensions of consciousness embodied in a human form, which is an avatar identity that's capable of moving its vibrational rate where it wants to, appearing and disappearing at will, and manifesting in 4 harmonics of matter density wherever it chooses. That was our original potential. Okay, I talked about how science doesn't know really what they're dealing with DNA. This is a point I want to bring together because we talked about fire letters in one part of one workshop, and then we talked about other aspects of DNA in another. This will bring it together a little bit of how these two things work together. Okay, the scalar wave programs, and we learned up here that DNA are actually the observable portions, chemical translations, of scalar wave programs that exist in the morphogenetic field. Okay, scalar wave programs that are held within the DNA imprint, these create the diversity of form. Different programs of scalar waves create different DNA in the manifest levels, which creates different biologies, okay? These programs, though, the scalar wave part of the DNA, the part below the part they're seeing, we call them fire letters. That's an ancient term that was used in Enochian teachings. And in the Hebrew teachings, they talked about fire letters. They were talking about the scalar wave patterns that, when activated within the DNA, allowed the body to turn to light. It allowed particle and antiparticle to fuse, to turn into fire and go to the next octave. They were talking about the secret mechanics, and they were always trying, the Hebrews especially knew this process existed, even with all the repression of information our histories have been about. They knew there was a sequence to fire letters, which are represented in the shapes of the Hebrew alphabet, some of them. They knew there was a sequence that held the secret to higher evolution, held the secret to opening the relationship between man and God. They knew there was a secret to ascension, and it was in the fire letters. They were right. They didn't take it as far as fire letters are scalar wave grids that affect other scalar wave grids of your DNA, that if you do it this way, it can, yes, make you turn into light and go up to the next octave. They didn't take it that far. Once upon a time they did. This information was taught before. They didn't use the term DNA. They didn't need it. That was just another chemical thing that happens as a result of the real stuff underneath. So there were terms in other languages that were applied to the core templates. They were applied to the genetic imprint below the DNA. But it helps to understand, if we want to understand this process of evolution, and if we want to understand what indigos are, we need to understand a little bit about how evolution works in general within our bodies, because it works different with them. Okay? We simply need to understand that we can look at our DNA instead of just identifying it as the chemical components of gene code that science uses now. Look at it as, yes, it's that. But it is also programs of scalar waves that are called fire letters. The DNA is a sequence, several sequences of scalar wave programs run together. They create flashline sequences to create the templates upon which your matter particles are built. Okay? It is a science. Simply expanding our concept of DNA into the concept of sequences of fire letters upon which the chemical translations manifest will begin to help us understand the process of biological transmutation, which was our original imprint. We were not meant to die. If you understand how to activate DNA and you can fix the mess that's been done to our DNA, death was not originally part of the human condition. Transmutation was the way to get out of here. You didn't leave a body behind.